My approach to trying to do these how-to sessions is really just to keep it totally open, basically whatever questions you have, or, I can, try and demo whatever you're wondering about, or, basically you're just gonna sort of guide me and we'll go from there. So feel free if anybody wants to jump in with a question or anything. Sure, Sarah.
So, thanks for doing this. Use GIS on a daily basis, mostly to look up map and lot. I've played around with some of the contours and the wetland and the visual pictures, because sometimes you want to see that picture of the property from up above. So for me, maybe sort of a high level overview of sort of the detail that's available depending
Mm,
on what we're looking for. So for example, if someone we know that they're in a wetland and they're going to get a new septic system and we want some more detail on that property, what are the best options to select?
mm,
If we know that somebody, we're looking at abutters and how close someone's house is maybe to the property line, and thinking about, well placement or something like that.
mm.
Again, what's the best detail to select to get the most information? Because I find sometimes I have interested community members looking over my shoulder, which I'm happy to have, but I want to impress them. So,
Right, right. Yeah, I know. Nothing more nerve-wracking than that. Yeah, been there a few times. So let me ask you this, Sarah. When you're, using the GIS program, are you using the town's what's called the Access GIS program, the
let
one
me
with like all the assessors data?
let me look.
Okay. Um,
It's yeah, West Tisbury. I mean, I don't even know. I'm already logged in when I go. So it says Axis CAI,
yeah,
Axis GIS on
yeah,
the bottom left, and then there's a lot of acronyms.
yeah. Yep, that's fine. Yeah, you answered my question.
Okay, good.
So I'm going to share my screen. Uh, all right. So, so what Sarah's been using is this program, this interface, and it's made by a company called CAI Technologies. And they are the company that produces the town's parcel data. And it so happens that it's the same company for all 6 towns on the island. So that's nice and consistent. And then every town on the island also contracts with CAI for one of these, websites where you can come in and search for a parcel and see different data sets. Um, so please, if anybody has any questions or comments along the way, feel free to just chime in and interrupt me. You don't have to
So,
bother
yeah, I mean,
to raise your hand. Drew? Okay. Um, so the way these Access GIS websites work, and that's just a name that the consultant gave to them. Don't ask me why. Um, each town, in addition to the parcel data, because that's really the main purpose of these websites, is to give public access to all that information that's in the assessor's database. Then sort of as a bonus, the consultant, can add additional data sets to the map. And it's really up to each town which additional data sets they include. So if you happen to bop around from town to town and you're like, hey, this other town had contours and this one doesn't, it's just one of those things. Um, no magic rhyme or reason as to why. It's just how it is. So from within this program, the one thing you cannot do is look for data somewhere else in the cloud, like MassGIS or from the ArcGIS online cloud, where I put stuff. You can't just add it in yourself. So you're kind of just stuck with the data sets that are in there. And, you can only do the best you can with what you got. Having said that, I do encourage you, though, as you use these websites, if you think it would be helpful to have a certain data set added to the website, you can let me know, and or let your town assessor know, um, because typically it's the town assessor who kind of oversees the contracting of this website. Um, and even though I don't manage these sites, sometimes there is a little piece of the puzzle that I do, um, because it's possible for me to take data that we're hosting in our ArcGIS Online Cloud, and then I give that information to the consultant who does this website. And then what they do is they directly live link the data from our cloud into this AxisGIS site, which is nice to have the direct link, because then if I update data, it automatically shows up on the AxisGIS site. It keeps things in sync. So that's just kind of a background for that. So here in West Tisbury, let's see what we have. So to get to all the data, there's the Layers tab. And the property data is pretty much, just everything associated with the tax map, the parcel bounds and the labels, some miscellaneous lines. So definitely anywhere there's a plus sign, it kind of indicates that there's a group of data below that. And anything that has the circle beside it gives you the ability to turn it on or turn it off, that data layer. So again, the property map is just all these, this whole collection of layers that make up what you see here. If there's anything listed in the group where the name is kind of grayed out, that means that you're not zoomed in far enough for that data to appear, or maybe you're zoomed in too far. You're not at the right zoom level for that data to show up or go away, whatever. So that's an explanation of how that works. So aside from the assessing data, we also have some just historic districts. And also, if you click that plus sign, you eventually get to the legend, which is obviously very helpful. So historic districts probably don't really, play too much into, siting of a well or a septic. Overlay zoning, that's just additional zones dealing with like the coastal district, the island road district. They all come with their regulations as to where you can build, how tall, this, that, the other thing. And then there's more standard zoning. as well. Let's see. So here under state data, and again, how these data are organized here and given the labels of MVC this and state that, that's all, configured by the consultant. So the state data, there's MassGIS, and basically that's the warehouse for, all the data within the state from like Mass DEP and just all the other state agencies. So let's see. Under aquifers, I think, in terms of septic and well, this is pretty generalized information regarding aquifers. Let's see. Biomap gets into a lot of habitat data. So here with the contours, we do have, so I think this first one I clicked on is probably showing us 10 feet contours. And I'm going to turn off the property data right now because it's a little hard to distinguish everything. So yeah, so these contours, it's really like every 10 meters, and then they converted that to feet. So that's that one. Then they do have 1 foot contours, which obviously is more detailed. And because the data set's so large, it might take a little while to display. The one thing in these AxisGIS sites, it seems to me that if you click on something on the map, the only thing you're going to get information for is the parcel. If anyone else has found that not to be the case, let me know. Let's see. Oh, I take that back. Look at that. It actually did pop up. So like I clicked on this contour, the yellow one, and it eventually did give me an information pop-up. So that's handy. So this one here is 125 feet elevation. Okay. Well, that's great. I think that's a new thing they added. Let's see. So here we have the wetland data. So certainly that should help with septics and wells. Let's see. So let's see, if we click on that wetland, okay, great, we get a pop-up. Wooded swamp deciduous. Sure. Wetlands. So in terms of the wetlands, I mean, I don't have any better data for wetlands other than, what's in MassGIS. Let's see here.
Chris, I'll just say, just watching you do this is really helpful.
Oh, okay, great. Great.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't even know that some of these layers existed.
Ah,
Right. There's a lot of detail that, yeah. And
yeah.
you can
Okay.
take away, you can add to, you can, so it's just about playing around with it, but the
Right.
information is there. It's just knowing how to find it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's always the magical piece
Right. But
is how to find it.
right. So I love that this is like, this is a marsh bog, this is a wooded marsh, this is a cranberry bog. That, that kind, having that kind of language, I think is really helpful in communicating with
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the
Okay.
public.
Great. Great. Um, yeah. So then here, even with the shoreline data, we click on that hydrologic connection. That's another connection. Okay. So yeah. Um, so so obviously, how deep you want to dive into the data, you know, is up to you. And sometimes, obviously, depending on the project, you might have to go a little deeper than, sort of what you see on the map. Um, and especially if someone, sort of starts to question, who generated these data and, what are all these funny codes, like when, if we go back and we click on that stream, we have this ARC code 7, like, what is that? All of these data that are coming, from what they call state data or MassGIS, you can go out to the MassGIS website and find these data, which I can show you that if you want. What else do we have here? So we're at the wetlands. This other stuff is just some wetland change data, somehow human altered. I'm not familiar with that one. Let's see. They drainage basins. What are these? Oh, so yeah, the drainage basin, again, this is like really generalized data from MassGIS. If you need watersheds, we do have watershed data, which was generated through all the MEP studies and such that have been done over the years. And since I'm not seeing that data set in this West Tisbury site, that's the kind of thing that, you know, certainly if it's helpful for your purposes, I can communicate to the consultant to just add that in. So the watershed boundaries, like for Tisbury Great Pond, it shows, watershed boundary basically for every coastal pond. So that means that basically the groundwater from, a particular parcel, if it's say in the Tisbury Great Pond watershed, then groundwater from that site is going into that coastal pond. So that could be added. Let's see.
So,
Mhm.
Chris, for the since we're speaking about the Tisbury watershed area, as we know, the Great Pond, West Tisbury rather, the Great Pond has a lot of little sections. Are they named? Can you find the names? Because sometimes someone will come in and
Mm,
say, "Can you look at such and such section of the pond?" And I'm going, I don't know, because
mm,
I don't know where that is.
sure,
So
sure.
it's
Yeah.
where they walk their dog and they're on a path and it's by Sipiessa and then there's this, for example, so can we
Hmm.
narrow?
Yeah, yeah. So one thing you can do, so so the background on here, this base map, the blue and the beige and these white outlined roads, that's all part of a base map that is publicly available. And what you can do on these sites is you can change the base map. And some base maps are more detailed in terms of the labeling that they have, and they might have the cove names. So why don't we see what the options are for a base map? Mhm. So since you're interested in the cove names, I'm going to take just a wild guess and go with this topo map, because oftentimes a lot of, often on a topo map, they do a great job with just labeling the location. Um, so here we have Town Cove, Pear Tree Cove, Muddy Cove, um, so it doesn't give you any way to like search and zoom to it, but
No, but that's exactly what I was looking for. Thank
but
you.
you can see it.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, so it's, certainly fun to come in and check out these different base maps. So like here's a different one. Again, they call it topographic, but they've really simplified it. And, it's topographic in the sense that it gives you this sort of 3D-ish looking map. It might be a little hard to see on the screen share, but unfortunately, we're not the Rocky Mountains where topography looks really awesome on a map. But anyway, if you looked at this on your screen um, in real time, you might be able to kind of make out that there's like a depression right here where that cove is. But anyway, playing around with the base maps is like endless entertainment.
Chris,
Um, so
Chris, could you just show I missed how you got
how
to
to
the
get,
base, how you got to the base map business?
yeah, yeah. So there's this 3-bar
Yep,
icon,
yep.
and I've heard some people refer to it as the hamburger bun icon.
Yep.
Anyway, but then this gives you a whole new suite of things to check out. And then there's base map. So, area of interest. I have no idea what this is. Hey, wow, look at that. They've given you some pre-marked, pre-canned zoom levels. So here, now we can just zoom to Duarts with area of interest. Takes you to Fisher Pond. Um, there we go. If you wanted to search by street, so it'll take you to that street. I've never used this before. These how-to sessions are always very informative, if for me and nobody else. So that's handy. And I would suspect, again, if you would like additional bookmarks added to this, I think if you let the assessor know who has, who then would pass it on to the consultant, um, I'm sure that's pretty doable. Let's see, what else do we have here?
Ooh,
The
all right,
the
I'm getting so excited. So how about this? Here's the
yes,
situation. Okay,
great.
it's kind of like a quiz. So can we measure distances? So I'll give you the story just so give it some context. Green burial, someone has a family plot on their property. DEP says, that boards of health are supposed to go to the green burial spot and ensure that the burial site is, 200 feet from the flood zone, is so many feet from a well, so many. So without going to the property after somebody's just, passed away, can we look at this information? All right, because I had someone that gave me like, okay, here's the the coordinates of where the grave is, and they're on the pond, but I don't know how far from the coordinates to say the flood zone is. Can we
Sure.
find that out?
So let's see. So since you're, so since we're in this world of the AxisGIS interface, let's see what we can do. Why don't we go back, go here to do arts, and I'm going to change the base map just because the topo one is so busy. All right. All right, so I'm just randomly picking a parcel close to the pond. Here's a structure, here's a house, here's the pond. And if you wanted to if we just first focus on measuring, so there's the measure tool, which again we got to through the magic 3-bar thing, and then we measure, and here you can do a length, and you can choose the units, and we're going to stick with feet. So then I think if we click, I'm just picking a corner of the house, and then if we went to the pond, yeah. That's it. Okay, yeah. So then you have to double click to end the measurement. So if you single click, drag it, and then double click it, it gives you the distance, from that edge of the house to the pond, and then it reports it over here in the window.
That's so cool.
165.
So if we had the coordinates, so if I had the latitude and longitude, right? And so we'd say, okay, this is the information. Now we want to measure to, the edge of the wetland, or to, the flood zone, or what have you, whatever we can get in terms of that location to the nearest start of water.
Right. So here under the measure tool, they have this location tool, but this one is just reporting the location for wherever I drag the cursor. It's not allowing me to enter a coordinate and then take me to that point.
Yeah, so when I did this, I kind of just zoomed around and found, like, okay, here it is. If I go a little to the left, a little to the right, I was able to
bless
find,
you.
yeah, the coordinates. So say we just pick that point, right? Wherever
Okay.
that the one you just marked,
Yep.
right? So you just have to scroll around, find it, click, and drag.
Yeah, but what I'm seeing is, so now if I have the location tool and I click on the map, it's there. But then if I go to the measure tool, my dot has gone away.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. Let's see if we go back to, so this is zoom in, zoom out, information, zoom to location. Oh, yeah, this zoom to location is, if you're on a mobile device and you're out and about, it'll zoom to wherever you are if you're sharing your location. That's what that is. That's just zoom. This goes back. That's a share. Let's see if there's anything in here that would allow us to actually enter a coordinate. we might come back and visit this ArcGIS Online sign-on. Anyway, staff access. Oh, here's another point. Sometimes a town can pay an additional fee to the consultant that puts this together. And what I'm looking at right now is the staff, I'm sorry, is the public facing interface. The staff access page, you need to sign on, and that might contain some extra tools. And maybe within that bundle of tools, it would allow you to enter a coordinate. I personally don't have any sign-on credentials for these sites, but this would be something to talk to your assessor about, to see if you have any additional, sort of like staff-only tools. Because that might allow you to enter a coordinate and then it'll pin it on the map. It also might allow you to make an abutters list. Like so many feet from a parcel, show me all those abutters and give me a mailing list. I'm really not sure, what else might be included in a staff access page. But that's definitely worth talking to your assessor about. Let's see, print, help and feedback, contact, disclaimer.
Can I ask a question about print option? Because I've tried multiple times, but I think I only got it right once. Sometimes when you measure from the structure to the property line or to any other object on the lot, you're able to print it with that measurement, but I think, and also change the scale a little bit to the one you need, adjusted. But it didn't turn out the way I wanted. So it just printed the plain map, the lot with the map. If we can just choose any
Sure.
to see.
Sure. Let me just go back here and just do a quick measurement. Just so we have that, graphic on the map. And then if we go to print, plain map, layout map. I'm going to guess, let's do the layout map. I think this gives us more options. So you can put in your own title, whatever you want it to be. You can also change the subtitle. Check the box if you want to include the legend on the map, which to me always makes sense. This is just orientation and, letters 8.5 by 11 versus a larger page size of 11 by 17. You can change the scale, but I think I would first just go with the default and see how that does. So if we print it, unfortunately, it doesn't seem to give us any choice for the file format, like if it's PDF or it's JPEG or it's TIFF. So here we do print. Okay, so it makes a PDF. There's the PDF. And the graphic that we had on the map did not show up.
Yeah.
But you're saying sometimes it does?
I think somebody showed me once with that measurement, but I couldn't figure out what I'm doing wrong and why it's not showing up for me.
Okay. And just one last thing about the PDF file, definitely you'll have to download it. Because right now at the moment, I think it's just stored somewhere in the cloud. So don't forget to download. Let's see if we go, maybe rather than a measurement, let's try draw. So what I'm going to do is just kind of trace over this graphic. And then I'm just going to add in this text. And my label, I'm going to call it 161 feet. I'm just kind of curious to see if it'll show the stuff on the printed version that you draw on the map versus it's just displayed on the map through the measurement tool. Just kind of curious. All right, so I did that. And now if we come back to print, oh, what happened to my label? Oh, okay. What it is. Huh. There's this little select tool for the draw. So now I think I can select that one and then delete it. Oops. Lost it all. All right, let's try again. So now if we try print layout. No, it didn't capture that either. I'm happy to reach out to the consultant and just inquire about that.
Yeah, if it's
Sure.
available and we're not doing something
Yeah.
right, or maybe it went away, that option.
Right, right. Sure.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Let's see. Where do I want to go?
Okay, I got another one.
All right. Yeah.
What
Okay.
if we want to snoop, say, and we had
You want to what?
snoop on someone's property. And I put it that way because sometimes, say for example, someone has put a trailer on their property and they hooked it up to their septic system without a permit. Can we get a visual of where the trailer is, maybe? Because then we can map out, because we have the septic system plan, we can kind of visually figure out, okay, here's the septic system. Now we know where the trailer is. So is there real time, like aerial views? I know that we can look at properties as they are, but how often is it updated? And can we just sort of snoop?
Right, right. So, okay, so here under the base map, so they actually give you 3 tabs. So there's base maps that come from this company called ESRI. Then there's other base maps. These are coming from ArcGIS. And if you wanted to go back in time, again, another thing to have endless fun with when you have nothing else to do. Anyway, but the state collects their aerials every couple of years. So the last time they did it, it was the spring of 23. But then we also have others. And here, at least in the West Tisbury collection, is just, maps from Google. And I'm not sure how often, they collect their imagery, but I'm going to guess it's maybe once a year. Some of the towns I know hire from another vendor aerial photographs that are taken at a lower altitude. And those photographs are also taken from various angles. So like any of these photographs from ArcGIS or from Google, they're all just looking straight down. But I know, again, for some of the towns who are contracting with this other vendor, I think it might be called Near Map. Again, they collect at least annually, and it's a lower altitude, so you might be able, to see more detail. And then they also collect typically from 4 angles, so you can see it from the north, the south, the east, the west. And maybe that's the kind of thing that if your town is participating, in that contract, maybe what you can do is if you have staff, if you get a login for that staff access, maybe through the staff access, you can see those photos within AxisGIS. Does that make sense?
It does. So
Okay.
can we look at, say, let's look at the town hall, 1059 State Road. Please.
I mean, I get it, that age is hard, but they have people to do this, it's like. I'll just get the skipper.
All right.
There'll be 5 of them.
So here we are. So if we go with the Google.
Oh, good. You started Chrome?
So this is the Google hybrid base map.
Jesse just one. You don't want to make any decisions.
There's that one. If we look at the local.
Yeah.
So this is from the spring of 23.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, in terms of the Google one, it's
What's the other one left? That has happened to me before. Yeah, yeah.
it would be nice if to know when that was last obtained, but I'm not seeing anything that provides that information.
That one disappeared.
But it's still, for me, it provides information just because I know the area, right?
Yeah,
So,
I was just curious about the date.
yeah, no, I am too.
Yeah.
But it's, I feel like, yeah, it still gives us a picture.
Yeah, no, definitely, the state aerials, they're great quality. But like I said, definitely I know some of the towns for the assessing department, they do contract for that additional
the near map.
imagery at the lower altitude.
Yeah.
And it might be the kind of thing with the staff sign in. You know, you can, you know, you then be able to see those photos within this program.
If it gets aggressive, I'll take it back or I'll take it whatever.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, for example, if we have a hoarding situation and someone says, well, I've done a lot of cleanup in the past 3 months, and you want to be able to say, get a view of, okay, this is what it was in October, and now here's what it is in January.
Yeah.
So do you think that'd be near map?
If it's anything, it would be near map. But again, you know, it just depends how frequently they fly, and how much the town is willing to pay. I'd be surprised if they're doing it more than once a year, but you never know. It's worth a conversation. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think we have it in Chilmark. I know Tim showed me a couple of times the shots over time over one property, which was very problematic, like biannual.
That's all I can say. I swear I signed January.
Okay.
I planned that plan.
Let's see. What else was I going to look at? Oh, I got curious about this ArcGIS Online option. Okay. So before we started this Zoom, I had signed in, you know, directly to my ArcGIS Online account. And it looks like, you know, AxisGIS knows that I'm already signed in, and it's just, you know, wanting me to approve it. So now I'm signed in. So this is pretty cool. For those of you who have a sign in, which many of you do, you can, from within AxisGIS, you can actually sign in to the ArcGIS Online account. And what that allows you to do is something that I said earlier that you probably couldn't do, which is you can search for data that's in our ArcGIS Online cloud, and then you can probably add it to the map. So why don't I just look for the watershed? And I'm just a little surprised here at the moment, just at the results. I'm just not quite seeing what I thought I'd see. I'm not sure why it's all this Millbrook stuff. Let's see.
It is a hot topic here in West Tisbury, Chris.
That's true. Maybe it senses that. Is it feature? Oh, weird. Nothing like you know, trying things out in a live demo that you're recording. Well, anyway, let's just hypothetically say this is really what I wanted anyway, something with the Millbrook watershed. So I found what I was looking for, and if I click the plus sign, loading, adding Millbrook watershed. So if we zoom out, Mm. For some reason, it sort of turned on all the data. Mm. Sorry, I'm just a little perplexed. Uh, I don't quite understand why it brought in so much data. Mm. Hmm. Anyway, maybe let me explore this option a little bit more. We'll try one more. Just for the heck of it, we're going to take income deed restricted multi-unit housing. All right. All right. So in theory, if you have an ArcGIS Online sign-in from the AxisGIS interface, you can actually sign into your account, and then you can search that cloud and hopefully find the data you're looking for, and then just click the plus sign, and then you can add it into this interface. So here, if we turn on the parcel property data, and if I go to the right town, because we're in West Tisbury, and there we go. So the data I brought in just happens to be some stuff regarding deed restricted housing. So that's all that is. Yeah, so this might be a little something to explore further, maybe in a future how-to session. So, and the one thing is, any data that you add in, the next time you open up this program, it's not going to save that. You know, it'll only be there for this session. If that makes sense. So, all right. So now that I sort of took us off on that little tangent, does anyone have any other questions or a direction you want me to go in that we should cover?
I have a question about like just use of the maps. So I work for the Oakland Shellfish Department, and I've used the Dukes County ArcGIS maps, but I've never
Mhm.
used this AxisGIS.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
I was just wondering like what is the difference, I guess, and what is the benefits of using the AxisGIS
Mm. Mhm.
versus the other, or if they're just different,
Right.
systems.
Sure. Great question. So with the AxisGIS, while you can do a lot of things in it, if you don't have any sign-on credential within AxisGIS, the one thing is, any of the work that you're doing to, produce that map that you printed to PDF, all of that work, it only exists in that moment. You can't save it, if you've added in layers, or you put graphics on the map, you're not able to go back in and save it within this AxisGIS program. The only caveat to that is maybe it's a little different if you do have sign-on credentials to AxisGIS. If we go to the ArcGIS Online program, and if you have the sign-on credentials for this program, you can, any of the work that you do to make a map. I'm just going to start a new map. If you add in layers, if you search for layers in here, and here you can choose if you're just going to search, from your content, or if you'll search, the whole organization. The organization is our entire Dukes County ArcGIS Online Cloud. So if you search in here, you can add data. You can also just search the entire ArcGIS Online Cloud, and say if you wanted data from MassGIS, you can do that. And let's say if we just do wetlands, so I'm just going to take the first one that popped up here. So now we add the wetlands. Within this program, what you can do is, however you set it up, if you add some zoom extents or some bookmarks, here we'll go with Simsbury. You can add that. So everything that you're putting into this map, you can save it so that you can open it again, at another time. So that's certainly, one advantage of using the ArcGIS Online. And then also, let's say, since you're in the shellfish department, you put together this web map. If you want to share this with the public, you have the option to do that under the share. So if you want to share it with everyone, let's say it's a map showing shellfish closures, and you wanted to share that with the public and have a link to it, on the shellfish homepage. You just share this map publicly and you save that setting. So it gives you a lot of control over who sees the map. So then what you would do is you would just, take the URL to this map and put that on your homepage, and then people could click on it, when they're on their boat, and view the map. There's also a lot of other things in ArcGIS Online that you can take this map and then you can sort of build off of it. And what I mean from that is some people find, this whole mapping interface, to be overwhelming. There's too many buttons, too many tools, whatever. If you wanted to simplify it, and put something out there to the public that, again, it's showing the same data, from this map, but it's just kind of putting it into a container that's simplified. To do that, you have options to create different apps. Again, it can just be an app that simply allows people to turn layers on and off. You can click on something on the map and see a pop-up. You know, or you can get into other things, dealing with things like dashboards where you can show statistics and charts and whatever from your data. But I would say that the main distinction between using the assessor's Access GIS program versus the ArcGIS Online program is, you know, you can save things in ArcGIS Online if you have the sign-on credential. And you just have more flexibility as to what you do with that map after you make it. So, and then, you know, you can also, you know, print maps from this program as well. And this one I know is pretty reliable with like capturing the graphics that you put on the map. Yeah, so maybe it's a little better in terms of the printing reliability. So, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah. Were there any other burning questions of the day?
I have a quick question about there is a septic map here on the Dukes County ArcGIS. How do we get to it?
Yep. So that septic map, I haven't made it public yet, so you definitely have to sign in. And if I go back here to content, and I'm pretty sure I've put all of the Board of Health people, I've made you members of the group of Boards of Health. So when you sign in, you're only going to see the groups that you're a member of. So you should see this Board of Health group. And then from here, this is just our overview page. In this blue bar, if you go to content, and then if we just search for, let's see, septic. Here we go.
Chris, are you sharing your screen still?
I think so. Yeah. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I've named it the Wastewater Systems Map. Yeah. So it's the group, it's the Board of Health group, and then it's content, Wastewater Systems Map. And I think I also have a dashboard for this. I'll have to look for that.
How did you get all this info, Chris?
So
this is a lot of information. I'm impressed.
That's a great question, Sarah. Thank you for the prompt. So
like, damn girl.
So for this septic map, in terms of the people who are on town sewer, a lot of that information I got from you know, the Down Island wastewater departments. They have a list of their customers. So I knew the parcels that are tied into the town sewer. Then there's the IA database that's maintained by the people over in Barnstable. So I got the IA systems from them. And at the time anyway, almost all the towns participated in that except for Aquinnah. But then I think Martina passed on to me maybe just the information for those in Aquinnah. And then for those on septic, basically if you didn't have an IA or you weren't, tied into the town sewer, then I assumed you were on septic. Then there's also an added assumption that depending on when the initial house was developed on the parcel, if the initial house was developed prior to the mid-70s, then I assumed that you were still using a non-Title V septic. It's a very gross assumption, obviously. But then if the initial house was built sometime after the mid-70s, then the assumption's made that you are on, quote unquote, a Title V septic. So I'm certainly, would be very happy, if you guys, want to talk with me offline, about, hey, how do we, update the data, to get a little more specific about Title V versus not Title V. And then also in terms of the location, the location, put the septic where the house is. And if there's more than one house, then it put it on the house that's the biggest. So that's how this was, generated island-wide, sort of using assumptions like that.
Well, good job, Chris. That must have been a lot of work.
It took a little time.
Yeah, bravo to you. That's a major project.
I don't think I have access to this group because I'm going through this as you speak, and I don't have that as an option.
Okay.
So Mark?
Yeah, I didn't even know this existed.
I find this map to be fantastic because it shows you exactly where the lines are and the properties. So it just, which is something that the ArcGIS does not do. So whenever I want to define exactly where a property really is regarding the water divide, it just gives me an exact position. So this is a great job, definitely.
Thanks. Yeah, so Anna, yeah, I'll double check after this session about your access to the group. Yeah, I'll definitely check on that. Let me just go back here to maybe I should go back to the group. Let me just go back to the group and see if I can find the dashboard. Maybe I didn't share the dashboard. Let's see. I had it filtered for maps. Let's see. Here we go. This is what I wanted to show. So the previous thing I was showing was, the map for the wastewater systems. But then I also made this thing called the dashboard. So what that does is it takes the map. So the map is like your foundation. It is the fundamental building block to spring off of and make other applications from it. So in the dashboard, it just gives you a different way to interact with the data. And it's also a way to share, some charts and, to sort of try and readily, give people, counts or percentages of different things, because obviously there's always the question of, well, how many of blah, blah, are within X and such. So here in this dashboard, which again is shared with the group, the Board of Health group, if you want, you can filter the data by town. So here, if we just take Chilmark, you know, the charts automatically adjust for that. And it breaks it down by septic, and then even the parcels that are, you know, still vacant but developable, just to give you an idea of, you know, how many more septics, you know, you might end up with in Chilmark. And then here's the count of, you know, septic by type. So, you know, again, it gets broken down by the non-Title V, the IAs, and then the Title V. So you can do it by town. Yeah. Yep.
Chris,
Yep.
question. Just remind me, the non-Title V is 1978, and Title
Yeah.
V is 1995.
So actually, Title V is anything from mid-70s up. It goes back that far. The Title V.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, mid-70s.
So
And then,
it includes 78 and 95.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. If you wanted to filter the map, just to see those, you know, sites that are on septic. So here we are in Chilmark, but let me change this to Eggertown. So, you know, so I'm showing all of these, you know, properties using septic. And again, you know, the chart automatically goes, you know, with whatever you filter for, the charts are going to reflect those choices. You know, if you, again, you know, if you want to filter it even more by the watershed, here we could look at just within Eggertown Great Pond. Again, if you scroll out, if you're zoomed out too far, the septic points go away, but you just have to zoom in and then see those. So, so anyway, so the dashboard is just, you know, hopefully a more user-friendly way to interact with the data. You know, and I happen to set that up for this particular map. So, oh, and then even within that data set, at the time anyway, for whatever project sort of spurred me to make this data set, there was some interest in terms of like which properties are within 500 feet of the pond. So that information is embedded within this data set also. So here again, you know, we're looking at properties on septic within the Eggertown Great Pond watershed that are within 500 feet of the pond. You know, so maybe if you're doing like some public outreach campaign, you know, these might be the homeowners that you first want to talk to, you know, just given how close they are to the pond, thinking about, you know, the water quality, that type of thing. And then the last piece of information is if they are year-round, or if they're not year-round, then they're assumed to be seasonal. So I even have that in here, and that too is an assumption. I generate that based off of the homeowner's zip code for their mailing address. If the mailing address is on island, then I assume that they are year-round. If it's an off-island zip code for their mail, then I assume they're seasonal. So, anyway, that's how that came about. And that assumption is one that I've been using for quite a long time. So anyway, within the data that I generate, it's, consistently applied.
Chris,
Yes,
can you show me again how you got to the dashboard, please?
sure. So I got here again through the groups,
Uh-huh.
and then there's the Board of Health group.
Home.
And
Okay,
yeah,
groups.
yep, groups, Board of Health, and then
Mhm.
on this blue bar, there's a content menu item. So then if you just search the content, I just did it by keyword. I just put in
Mhm.
septic. So then we have this wastewater systems dashboard, and that's what we're looking at. This version here is just so this second one here, the wastewater systems Dukes County, this is the actual data set. Just as FYI, that's what a feature layer is. That's the actual piece of data. Then that piece of data got put into this web map, wastewater systems map. Then that map gets put in to this dashboard. So that's kind of all the pieces of the puzzle.
And
Thank you.
how often does it get updated? Because we approve at least 3 septics per meeting, so it's 6 per month. So it's
Wow.
like
Wow.
80 a year, roughly.
Yeah. Okay. So this data set, I think I last updated it maybe off the top of my head, it was maybe 2022 or 23. Because so much of the data was really just based on the assumption that if you're not tied into town sewer, then you're on septic. So the new properties that have been developed since then, who have approved septics, that information's not in here. But certainly, I'm more than happy to update it. If I'm happy to talk about, going forward as you approve septics, if there's information that you want to share with me, and then I can update the map. That would be awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
Sure.
maybe every couple of months we'll send you a list of
Right.
properties that got approved and what kind of system.
Right. Yeah. And then, and we can figure out, in terms of, pinning the location on the map, we can talk about, how accurate you want that to be. I mean, if there's a lat long that's provided in the septic plan, I don't know. We can figure that out. So, yeah,
Cool.
yeah, that'd be great. Sure.
Would this connect to the GIS program on the town website? Or no? Or when it's done, it might.
So you, in theory, we should be able to find this data set, this feature layer thing, this wastewater systems Dukes County, when we go to the AxisGIS site. So let's see. So we'll just do chill mark. And then over here, ArcGIS Online. I'm already signed in. So I do allow. So I'm going to do, I'll stick with groups. Hmm.
Maybe because it's private dashboard or
I wouldn't suspect that would be the issue because I'm actually signed in, you know, I'm not really accessing this as a person from the public. I think I'll have to reach out to the consultant and get an understanding as to how this works. Because before today, I've never used it. Yeah.
Try wastewater as two different words.
Ooh.
Oh, okay. Oh, shucks.
You never know.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know. Huh. I don't know. It's yeah, peculiar. Anyway, theoretically it should work. So anyway. Well, I'm really pleased that so many of you showed up. And great turnout from the boards of health and Maddie from OB Shellfish. So I think the next how-to session is in, off the top of my head, I'm thinking it's September. But certainly, you know, reach out to me anytime. You know, if you want to send me information, you know, regarding septics, so I can, you know, update that data, you know, at least going forward. That's awesome. Yeah. You know, all the towns pay the annual assessment to the commission, and my services are provided under that. And again, all the towns are participating in this GIS contract, so the ArcGIS online stuff is available. So might as well use it. So, all right.
Thank you, Chris.
thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah,
All right,
thank
you're
you.
welcome.
This was great. Thank you, Chris.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Have a good day.
Bye.